afternoon, everyone. My name is Skip Hank. I'm the president and CEO of Explore International. And on behalf of Explore and Eclipse, I want to welcome you to today's broadcast of Think Outside of the Box. Our speaker today is Leslie Conduit, Senior System Engineer at Eclipse. Before we begin, I want to share a few tips with you. As an attendee, you'll see the attendee control panel, which can be expanded or collapsed by clicking the plus or minus on the left side of each pane. You can use the question and answer feature to send text questions to me, and I'll queue those up to be answered at the end. You can also click the square to toggle the viewer window between full screen and window mode. As always, we are recording this webinar, and you'll receive a link to view along with the PDF copy of the presentation in 2 to 3 business days. I would like to note that all data and information provided in this webinar and expressed by the presenter is for informational purposes only. Explore International makes no representation as to accuracy, completeness, suitability, or validity of any information, although I think this is going to be great information from a personal perspective. So now please join me in welcoming Leslie. Leslie, the show is all yours.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Skip. Okay, so I'm going to kind of dive right into it, but just wanted to show you, share with everybody that I've been around the industry since I got out of college, about 30 years, from everything from quality assurance to marketing to on-site to even running a DocuTech, which I'm not even certain they're still manufactured, but I'm sure there's printers you've seen that are pretty large, loading bins and such. So I think I'll be able to answer any questions you have at the end. And what I'm going to do is go over basically the presentation and the goal of this thinking outside the box. And then at the end, I will do a live presentation of some of the things that I'm going to be talking about. So I will start. So I just found this quote, and there's a lot of quotes out there that kind of say the same thing, but I started with Charles Darwin, really that this it's not the strongest species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives, but the one that's most adaptable to change. And we've certainly seen that in this past year, that we really have to be able to think on our feet and react pretty rapidly. And that's not just the change that happened in the last year, it's really ongoing all the time. So what we've really been focusing on from Eclipse's perspective is focusing on things that change that we talk about, which is variables that our content changes, and we really want to remove them from the template to be part of IT's tour, and then really let the content owner take over control of that content. So we call it master global template, and you'll see what I mean by that today. Oh. All right, sorry about that. I just played the video twice. Okay, so then what type of changes that I see, along the years is there's really 7 here I'm pointing out, and some, overlap a bit. But mergers and company acquisitions, that's a big one. I don't know if any of you have attended, but definitely that happens, often in banking and insurance, and then really manufacturing or any industry whatsoever. That when you merge a company, that means that me as a recipient, for example, I have Chase Bank. I moved here in my new area about 15 years ago. It was acquired by JP Morgan. So if I had received a letter from JP Morgan, I might have pitched it, not realizing that they were merged. So that really becomes part of a chore to the document owners to know how to handle those mergers and acquisitions. How are we going to make sure both recipients from both companies can know that that's actually a document for them and not from a competitive, banking situation. Then change in leadership, and when I talk about this, of course, it means changing the direction of the company. But really, what I'm focused on is signatures on the bottom of a check. That is signed by your financial leader, vice president of the financial group, or even letters that are signed by, your vice president of customer relations. Then competitors, new product releases. This is really what I call a competitive disadvantage. So, and this best is shown by the automotive industry, that if you're not offering electronic cars, you might lose advantage. So we have to react to that by bringing a product out and then bring that product to market. And then, of course, changing all of our documents to take advantage of the new product release. Then probably one of the biggest ones in the last, and this is a new feature for us in the last 3 years, is regulatory changes have always been quite a daunting task for us in the industry of the forums industry, that every year around, tax, changes or regulation changes. I used to be just a designer, so that would be mandatory overtime, minimum of 12 hours a day, because we had to get the new regulations out. You have a small window of getting those changes out to your recipients, or you can be fined. So that is a pretty daunting task, and we have a new technology that's out in the industry of the forums industry, and that would be really helpful for anyone who is impacted by that. Next is new technology, and this kind of goes along with the idea of electronic forms, but new technologies in the industry that might impact your business that you need to be responding to. And then of course, new product releases. You might want to announce your new product that you're offering that people might not even be aware of. And my example here today is going to be Pella Windows. Like, I didn't even know that they sold security systems. I knew they did windows and doors. So some complement products that your customers might not be aware of. And then of course, we know the change of the pandemic certainly impacted our group. So now specifically talking about how those changes impact us from the forums world, where would we start, and what areas can we use the new technology that's available today to help us with those changes, to become more flexible. So when some of this is redundant, but really our logo changes and our signature changes, again, bottom of checks, logo changes for mergers, and even salutations of that signature area, those names are going to be changed. So that's dynamic. Our phone numbers and addresses and color schemes. So I've seen companies that have expanded and grown through acquisition or just growing their business. They have moved buildings, and in the past, 30 years ago, that meant obsoleting all the pre-printed forms, reprinting them, and then of course making those changes to all of your document templates. So we're really encouraging our customers, especially those that are in the industry that changes often, to have that type of information external, outside of the box, going along with our theme. The next third one is international language captions and text. And I still find today that, we start a new project, and then the customer, I always ask, if they operate internationally, and then what languages they operate in. When I receive their forms, I'll get a Spanish version, a French version, and an English version of the form. And that, again, can be quite daunting. If you imagine if your library is made up of 1,000 forms, then for every language now it's 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 exponentially. So we're going to talk about how we can handle that as well. And then again, one of my favorite features here, number 4, is the text changes provided by external sources such as regulatory organizations, the government itself, your compliance department, human resources, or professional services. So really, those are primarily text-intensive documents that are provided to you, and then you have to provide your recipients. And the best example here would really be insurance. That there are things, for workers' compensation, for example, that you have to provide. One of them is a glossary of terms of what, the legal terms and your rights as an injured party. That changes often, pretty much every year. As far as, at least when I was on the project, right? And then plain and rich text blocks. And this is things, for example, that change state to state or change on a key variable. Like if I'm a business, my document might look different and sound different than if I'm a corporation as a customer. And most companies can do business, but some mix business versus direct client. And then that information, rather than having a letter, and I'll often see this, a letter for Illinois and another letter for Wisconsin, rather than having multiple documents for every state-to-state change, have that variable information, like the body of the letter, be external, and then that can be changed by the content owner, and then it's immediately available, and IT doesn't touch them. Lastly, we talk a lot of times, and people will ask me what the difference between promotional messaging and critical messaging. But promotional messaging is, hey, we sell windows and doors, but we also sell security information and security equipment. And then critical messaging would be more like there might be a hazard with a certain type of product that you want a critical message to get across to your client, or you're declining them because they have as an insurance company, because they have a tree too close to their home. So those things are critical messaging. So both are messages, but different goals. So now we're going to break them down one by one. The first one is logos, contact information, and signatures. And again, there's a bit of an overlap, but there's two samples here, and these are all things I've heard from my clients. Great news, we've acquired our competitor, mandatory overtime for everyone. And this is where, for me, but not great for a company that's will be able to handle the other. And then of course, another one is, Jane Smith, just retired, mandatory for the signature blocks on the bottom of all of the letters. So here we can use two technologies right now that we have, and a lot of companies will offer what we call a fragment library, which means there's a section on the form that's built as a fragment. Thank you, or salute, and then if you use the new technology, the other option is to use a dynamic lookup, so that rather than hard coding, someone hard coded on there, you can actually just look up the VP of customer relations, and that's automatically just updated, and then that new comes. So nothing, you have to hit every one of your documents manually. You would just have to update either your fragment or the lookup of the signature and the text that is returned on that area. And there's advantages to both. It's really whatever fits the client's needs the best. It's kind of covering one and two at the same time. And just to show it's not smoke and mirrors, this is just really pretending I have a pretend reach company, a pretend star company, and we have Bill and Matthew on one side, Bill on the other. That can be dynamically changed. So this is the same template. It's built as a master global template, and the information being at the top of the screen, being the logo and the signature, and the address, and then the signatures as well, are all dynamic in our master global template. So same template, different information. Now, third is the multilingual forms. Great news that we've expanded our office to Italy. So now they have to, add all the library information, expand their library to include Italian. So mandatory overtime, and this would be a pretty big one, right? Depending on how big your forms library is. So what we're recommending is that you keep that language in a language file. And when we talk about auto translation is what we call it, we're actually not on the fly auto translating. Really, I wouldn't recommend that any company do that. Google Translate I use all the time for demonstration purposes, but usually there's an outsourced company that will translate your document, and then we just build a profile for Italian, and then you just simply add Italian as your lookup, and it'll automatically be available in your master global template if you set up your form to be dynamic. So again, we don't, in the sample, we have, hello, hola, bonjour, and ciao, I believe is how it's pronounced. So this is all can be built with one template rather than four. So I'm always trying to show you your, not smoke and mirrors. I do a zoom in on the next one. So where we have English on this side and then Italian on the other, and these are just two dynamic different documents. And then we can go one more slide to see the same template, 2-page as well. So this is an actual form that we use for a company, Konica Minolta, which lets us speak about their company, and they operate in all across the globe. And right now, this form is designed for Canadian, French Canadian, as well as English. Okay, and then here it's one of the one I keep noting is my favorite. It's text provided to you by an external source. So regulation changes have come, and we need to update all of our terms and conditions. And that always happens not only for all of our documents, but for every state and every language. So again, probably that that could hit almost every single one of your forms, and that could be pretty exponentially large. So what we're recommending is pulling that text-intensive pages that are provided to you by an external source, literally stitching them into your documents. So we received the updated terms from our compliance department. We've loaded those new PDFs or even PCLs we support for each state, for each language, define the rules to choose the appropriate version, like we're expanding to Italian, for example, in the story. And then that's all you need to do. You just need to update your library of the terms and conditions, and that document will be stitched immediately into your document template. So no real change to your templates itself. So this sample document, which I'm going to show you today, we have an external English terms and conditions, and then we have Italian on the right side here. Next is our, to promote your products and services, as well as getting your critical messaging out. And this is my, automotive fake sample. We're now offering our electronic car. We want to tell all of our clients that now we're current and we offer our electronic car, and also to make sure you don't plug that car into a regular outlet. Although, for all I know, it actually is appropriate. So maybe that's a fire hazard. So that's a critical message, or something, like I said, with the, insurance, if you during inspection insurance claim, it shows that, I'm not insurance claim, an insurance application, you notice that there's a tree close to that house, that company might want to deny you coverage until you remove that tree. It's something we've seen in the past. So we talk about white space when we're talking about marketing and critical messaging, and there's 3 types of white space that you can take advantage of to promote or pass that critical messaging through. And the first area is what we call fixed white space, and that's literally the fixed white space that always is empty on your screen or on your sheet of paper. So that would be perfect for just generic messaging. Could be good to tell your recipients that you have electronic cars now. And then the next one is creative white space that literally will shift your document and expand your dynamic document to insert something specific to that line item, for example. So here I have like an industry promotional area, and then this is a service charge that you've made, and I'm just telling the client, if you sign up for our support and our maintenance, then you wouldn't have a service charge. So that might be something that the recipient actually, would want to take advantage of. And then the last one is lost white space, and that is literally the empty or blank vertical white space left on a form. So if you imagine this page overflowed and only one line item was passed over, on page 2, you'd have a pretty big white space area on your form. So you can also promote, usually we suggest generic messaging here, but it can be specific as well. Build rules around that as well. And then this is an example of dynamic content to promote hazardous material or hazardous warnings as well as promotional information. So this is our Pella window example where I'm prompting some COVID messaging, maybe saying that, in our manufacturing plant, we're taking all the precautionary measures. And then here is the line item to show that the door that they purchased, Pella offers a security device that goes with that door. And then, of course, it's a tip hazard to make sure that you have 2 people lifting this door. It's very heavy, so we're telling the recipients. The one thing I want to point out here is what I've seen in the past, and even when I receive a package in the mail, sometimes the hazardous warning is within the box. So I'm opening the box and I'm opening my packing slip, and that is telling me that this item is flammable, for example. And that doesn't really protect the person that's at a shipping dock receiving that they might make sure to not put this box near a heat source. So it's always important to tell anyone that needs to see the warning. So this is really telling the recipient that opens a box, and then automatically we're going to generate, if we see any warnings or any hazards, we're all automatically going to create a tip hazard sticker, right, for the outside of that box. And that's often, I've been in manufacturing plants in the past that they have a roll of stickers, and then that product will indicate that it has a tip hazard. So then they'll take a tip hazard and put that on the outside of the box. But it would be great that that's automatically printed so it's never overlooked, or we never have to worry about running out of that sticker. So that's our example there. And this is kind of off subject, but I just wanted to include it, that, the one thing I hear often, and I really say, when I tell people what I do for a living, and they don't even really know that there's an industry out there that I've dedicated my whole life to, which is forms. But forms are really not going away. They're really just evolving. So the one thing that I often hear is that people say, oh, you can do everything, and I receive all my, I can go online and see my invoice or my receipt, and then I can receive an email as a receipt. And that's great for, me returning, a small product from Target maybe. But when you're talking about regulatory information where it's regulated, that it has to have a readability, it has to be a certain point size. And I also don't want to, just to go on a plane, print 3 pages and use all of my toner, right? Just to get my flight information and my confirmation number. That those tools are great to expand, to offer HTML and online information, But really, and again, we saw this year, not everybody has access to online, so we really can't make that assumption. So we have to always provide, and as far as I'm concerned, or at least until that I'm ready to retire, that we're always going to need to, especially for some organizations, offer a version of that document or that piece of information in a printed document or even a PDF document, and that's and so that we know that our client can read it and print it and have it in hand. And then that's the end of my formal part of the presentation. Now I'm going to go straight into my live. I think we're holding all of our questions to the end, so I'm just going to escape out of here, and then we'll go to our demonstration. So the first demonstration I wanted to show you was, let's shrink this here. I'm going to run it's a bank demonstration which stitches multiple documents together, and I'm running it live, and it should have opened up my folder so you can see that it was live. Let me jump over here. So this is what I just ran. So it is, let's just show you, smoke and mirrors, 1223. So it's 1223 right now. So we're going to open this up. And I think I have, far more documents than typical. But insurance, it's not even unusual to have 150 or 50-page document going to a client. So this is the same document template, and you'll notice all the things we talked about, like the logo is going to change from document to document. I'm actually going to pop open my thumbnails here, and then the information on the bottom, and then you'll see promotional information that's changing. Like for example, I have a parking garage here, so if you look, I'm promoting ParkWiz. So maybe ParkWiz can, the bank can sell advertisements of ParkWiz whenever you see the word garage or parking, that they can prompt a promotional item, right? And then if I flip through here, and I should probably zoom in, I remember 58%. This is what we call the dynamic information that changes state to state. So you'll notice that this is text that I'm embedding automatically through rich text for Alabama itself, and then it is being dynamically merged into my document itself. So it's not hard-coded into my form. So I don't have one form for Alabama and one form for another state and so forth. I'm gonna go back to 58% because some of my documents are tall here. And then this is what we call our last white space, not to leave that empty. Take advantage of it if toner is cheap. And then here is my letter that I have, Penny Bank here, and we have a hard-coded signature. I'm not a hard-coded signature. I think this one is using a fragment or a lookup. And I'm going to flip through here kind of fast, that anything you see with the color schemes changing, that is actually a form template that we use our tool, DocOrigin, to design. So it's going to change the look and the feel of the document. But of course, this is text intensive and really could have been stitched. But we're going to try to show you a variety. So if I continue to flip here, and hopefully I don't make anyone nauseous, here's where we get into what we call stitching a document. So when I say stitching a document, we're literally stitching an external PDF, which I'm going to show you, into our document itself. So this is not converted into DocOrigin, which again, especially when you get into some of this regulatory column and outline form documents, it's really time consuming to convert this into any tool, no matter what tool you use, to get all the alignment the same as it was before, and your text, your font's perfect. So I'm flipping through, and this is all stitched documents through here, and that's really already built by your either compliance department or your regulatory department. This content has already been scrutinized already and provided to you either in a Word document or a PDF. So what we're telling our customers, if you're receiving that information as a PDF, then don't convert it in our tool, and just simply stitch it into your document as is, as a PDF. So I'm flipping through here, and you can tell some of them are, stitched and some are not. And now here I'm, again, a single master global template, but my company is now our fake reach company, and it has different promotional information, like the walking store, I'm promoting DSW. So, just showing that I can look for a shoe store or competitors, and here we have Cure Coffee, and we're saying if you order K-Cubs every month, we'll give you 20% off. So if I flip through here, and here I'm showing that Reach Company has a different signatory area. So this is the same exact document, and of course the master global template allows you to change all this information dynamically. So anyone who is a form designer should see how nice this would be. We can certainly keep our hours down to a minimum. So what I'm going to demonstrate, just to show you this is not smoke and mirrors, is that I'm going to close this document out. And I can even save it, save it as, one at, what was it, 1223. So we'll just note that that's the 1223 one. And I'm going to make changes to the PDF itself. And I'm just going to do something silly. So I'm going to go into tools. I'm just going to make it red just so we can all see that it's changed. So of course, that's not going to be a typical change you'll see in a document, but it's just an example to say that now we've received a new document from your compliance department and it's changed in some way. So all we really need to do is make the change and save it, right? And then I'm going to reduce this down. And now I'm going to go to my rich text, which is being pulled in. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to make this red. And so this is, of course, doesn't even look like how we're bringing in. We're bringing it as a column format. And we're also bringing in things like the customer's address, embedded in as a field element, and save this as well. And now I'm going to run that same program, which is just emulating our merge and production of documents together. Get a new PDF, and we should see the red information there. So I do round one, making, now we have new PDF, and we that as well. And you won't see the red text on every one because that's dynamic. I'll talk about that in a second. But there's our rich text that I just changed. So that was just run. And then if I flip down, you should be able to see, and I think I put it on the first one. Somewhere here we have checking. I should have paid attention to which one was checking. There we go. And then page 47, we can see that document changed. So I know that especially, like I said, insurance companies that have a lot of text-intensive documents in banking, they receive PDFs all the time, and they have teams of 10 to up to 30 people just staffing to handle all the regulatory changes and changes within text-intensive documents. So it would be really great to be able to not have to convert this document, although this one looks relatively simple, but some documents are pretty complex, outlines and more intense details. So that's this example, and then the other example I wanted to show you is what we call our dynamic content changes. So that is, we're going to show, I already prompted them up here, that we just which I'm here for one of my apologies. We talk about a master global template. This is our template for our fake example of our index. You can see that if I zoom in here, I have an invoice number, and that's going to demonstrate. Run this again. It shows the invoice number, which by default is English, but it's up to change the content of this text object automatically based on the in that document. So PDF fly from time. You'll see, and then also we can see that that's changed. Single available template change, right? And then the other item is that the content changes comes usually not from IT. So I was osmosis some things with it's really not real because and ask me to change the regulatory information. But really, what we're trying to encourage is that the content owners, meaning HR or the compliance department, they're going to have control over what goes into a form. So that information is really going to be controlled from a user's, whoever is a content owner, to change that information. So this is like important messaging, for example, that they're going to control the content that goes in there. And IT is really done with their form once they're here. They're basically just building a shell of a document that any language can be supported whatsoever. If you pick up a fourth or fifth language, you're just going to expand your language table to handle that new language. And IT never has to touch the document because that is automatically going to be updated based on the language. And then when we talk about some of the dynamic messaging, for example, the notes under the text or images talking about hazardous warnings or promotional items, this is our detail item line. So here's our line. And I've basically always told our customers to bury your dynamic areas or optional messaging areas everywhere that you might want them. and so my best example is important information that we didn't know a pandemic was coming. But if all of our customers had an important, message at the top of their form, this area is going to remain what we call idle or suppressed unless it's needed. So we can define when that's going to be prompted and then when it's no longer going to be prompted. So here's the text messaging sample for COVID messaging, and then I can build a date around that to say that it's expiring as of June 21, right? I'm going to think I change this. And then so it can stop being prompted. Or it could be a promotional item that you can prepare for a product launch, months in advance, rather than having the IT department wait around the day before we do the launch, which happens often where we're all working at odd hours on the weekend, so that we're not disrupting normal business work, that we're going to be able to set up all of those content changes here, and then as soon as that day rolls over, then that information is automatically prompted. So you've already tested a QA that you can change your production dates and so forth. And then this is our example of our stitching document, just showing you, which I really flipped through here in the sample. But this is not only stitching a document, but we're dynamically stitching a document based on the language change. So this is stitching a document. I can show you in the form, just to show you it's not smoke and mirrors, that there is no text that looks like this in my document. So I'm stitching it based on language. So I'm dynamically stitching a PDF based on its language. So if you go in here for my document, you'll see that I have terms and regulations for MM savings, which is our money market savings account, versus if I sort by date, name. This is my terms for checking account and so forth. So the document template itself, if I grab this and slide this down here, you'll see it looks really plain, right? There is nothing in here, no text in here whatsoever, and it's just stitched, and it could be completely blank. And what we always tell our customers is you can put something in the margin, what we call white space, in the margin of the document if you want to stitch on top of that an overlay. So just imagine that it's an overlay, and it's just literally going to give you enough pages based on how many pages are in the PDF. So the pagination doesn't matter. It can go from 10 pages to 30 pages, and all 30 will be included, or 10 pages to 2 pages, and only the pages that are necessary will be inserted. So I think that's really, I know I'm at 34 here, but I wanted to make sure to leave time for questions, and I can certainly go into more pieces as well. But that would probably be, nobody needs my full hour. I would say let's open it up for questions right now.
Okay, if you have any questions, please send them. We've got plenty of time left, and Leslie's certainly happy to answer any questions you may have. Okay, we got one. What volume can this system handle?
And I wish Alex was on here. I know that we handle McKesson, which is we handle millions of transactions, depending on how, through AT&T does millions of transactions. But I don't have the stats on that, which I'm now, I wish I had it right in front of me. But we can, our production. I should pull up the production, but a lot. Like McKesson, and then we also have, I can't think of a company, but we do handle a lot of print service providers, and they handle, millions of transact pages a day as well. I mean, pages a month as well.
Okay.
I'm going to ping my partner to get an exact number, because I wish I had that in front of me.
Okay, well, the question will be in the report that we give you, so you can get back to everybody on it. So.
That's good. That's good.
Okay. Okay, so let's see. Okay. Is there a user interface that allows you to enter content? Example, letter, body, verbiage, etc.
Yep. So our GUI interface is what we call it's BCC, and this is where we really focus on the content input. So all the IT department, just noting back here, the IT only has to build areas of dynamic content, right? In this example, I think we have, I'm going to go to my invoices best. we're just building a framework. So either it's text or it's an image. So IT is done, and that's the framework to insert the content. And then our GUI interface allows us to import, and I'm just going to do it on the fly, that you can either go and import a file of rich text. So if I navigate right here to rich text document, I'll just grab anyone I can. So let's go here. I know I have some here. I'll just grab one of these. So we'll grab, allergy clear. We'll grab something that's not really appropriate to banking, but I can just grab that content right here, and now it's in the document. And then if I want to tweak something, I can edit it directly in my GUI interface. And then I can even add things like, if I have a field, I can insert the field itself right here, or even a date timestamp, and so forth. So that would be the GUI interface. So, and this is really designed, and I'm glad that question came out, really designed for non-technical users. So this is really targeted for HR and compliance, that they're just adding content, adding the rule, and the rules, again, we're really building intelligence behind there, but the rules are going to be sent in global, in what we call layman terms. So I might say if the account number is, and then equal to, or contains, or what have you, starts with, we've had situations where the customers target specific clients like educational market. So I could say if it starts with EDU, then it means it's an educational market. And so that rule will apply, that only if the data has this field that starts with EDU, that'll be applied. I can add secondary conditions, which again, this is doing something that on the technical side would be far more time consuming for me to design here, which I could, design a conditional statement, but this is better because it's providing the GUI interface for the user to write text and change their text regulations, as well as when the rule is prompted. And then of course we now have, new as of about 9 months ago, we're offering also that our assets itself, we consider this an asset to your document, which is just content itself. This asset can have no date regulations, or I can say this is going to start on, September 1st and expire, on a certain date. So this has been really something our customers have been asking for. So we've added this. This can be applied to the asset itself. And even you can have your entire template, you can have a full template or campaign for a template start on September. So these are asset specific, as well as a full document itself can start and end, and then they'll just return to their standard document. If you have a promotion like during Black Friday, for example. Hopefully that answers your question. And then logos are the same. You can upload them as well. So this would be an image that I can just grab an image from my library. So I can even look for, I think I'll have it's vertical white space. Just grab any of my documents here, or my images here, or upload an image myself. And then it adds automatically without a rule, and then you can apply those as well. So yeah.
Okay. We still have time for more questions. There's none up on the board here. If anybody has any, just send them along. I'll give you a couple minutes. And
while we wait, I can always field, our GUI interface, since that question was about that, that this GUI interface, like I said, is really targeted to this whole presentation. And that, in my 30 years, I've done some pretty complex stuff, and even escalated some really complex form design to even my seniors, my more programmers. The majority of my work on a day-to-day basis in my industry is content changes. So that's really what we've been focusing on, is that is a really costly and time-consuming task for our audience. So that's why we built this tool, to allow that content to come out of being part of the IT department and really going to the hands of the users. So we've grouped this as campaigns. Campaigns are the actual template itself, and that would be our master global template. For example, the blank stitch date document, or my invoice document that has multiple languages. And then our definitions are basically the overlay to this template. So it is using our master global template. So if I look at my definitions themselves, they are where I'm adding my rich text or my images that you saw in that GUI interface. And then of course we add, user access and departments. so that I can filter through and only HR has access to their department or their applications like payroll and HR related documents versus someone that's in the regulatory or marketing. And then when I go into my definitions, I can sort on, for example, I have a department that just for me to sort to my favorite demonstrations is an industry. So really pretty GUI user interface is pretty user-friendly for GUI interface. Is there another question?
No, I don't see any more questions. And of course, once we finish, you'll have her information, contact information. So
right.
You can contact Leslie directly. She'll answer any questions you may have. So Leslie, you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think I would just say that one, thank you so much for joining, and I hopefully you were not hoping for a full hour. I always rush thinking I'm not going to get all the information that I want. It's 30 years in this industry, so I always think I have so much to share. But certainly we would love to do a demonstration from any one of you to actually do maybe even a proof of concept for you to show you that this is the real deal, and these are all, everything we've added to our product is based on our years of experience. So hopefully it shows some value. And I was like bringing up one of my favorite samples of our, like for example, our roofing is being declined, and I did do a rehab, which was far harder than people think, but we were declined because we had a tree too close to our house, and it was hard to find that information as I read through the decline that we had to cut down the tree to get insured, which had to happen right away because we didn't want a home that wasn't insured. So hopefully these all my ideas are resonating. These are all real world things that have happened in my 30 years. And so we built our tools and our demonstrations around that, and we've shared those with our customers. And we can be pretty creative to be able to reduce your library so that your work is, your IT has free time to do other things other than just focusing primarily on documents. And then the content owners can get their changes through IT right away because they're handling the content of the documents. So hopefully that's what came across, because that was my goal. And thank you again for joining.
Okay, well, with that, this concludes today's webinar. I want to thank you, Leslie, for sharing today, and of course, Eclipse for sponsoring the event. I do want to remind everybody to go to the Explore website often. You'll find updates on programming, upcoming events, and such. Explore recently announced Explore 21, which will be an in-person event November 16th to the 18th at the Tradewinds Island Grand Resort on St. Pete Beach. The conference website and registration are open. So head on over to www.explore.org and for the most up-to-date information and to register for the event. We have several programs that if you haven't attended the conference, we have first-timer programs you can attend for free. All that information is on the website. If you want to present, call for presentations is up also, and we'd love to have you come down and give a presentation and attend the conference. If you do give a presentation, you get a complimentary conference pass. So anyway, with that, thank you, and we will now disconnect. Everybody have a great week.